My name is James, and I'm a travel writer. My job takes me to some of the most beautiful and historic places in Canada, but it also leads me to some of the most haunted. One such place is the Maplewood Inn in Alberta, a charming old inn with a dark past. The Maplewood Inn is a Victorian-era building with ornate architecture and a warm, welcoming atmosphere. It's a popular spot for tourists, but it also has a reputation for being haunted. I had heard the stories of the headless man who roams the halls, but I was skeptical. As a writer, I'm always looking for a good story, so I decided to spend a night at the inn and see for myself. I checked into the inn on a chilly autumn evening. The lobby was beautifully decorated with antique furniture and a roaring fireplace. The staff were friendly and accommodating, and I was given a room on the second floor. It was a cozy room with a four-poster bed and a view of the garden. As the evening wore on, I explored the inn, taking in its historic charm. I chatted with other guests, many of whom had their own ghost stories to share. Some had heard strange noises in the night, while others had seen the apparition of a headless man wandering the halls. Despite the eerie tales, I remained skeptical. Around midnight, I decided to call it a night and headed back to my room. As I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I chalked it up to the power of suggestion and closed my eyes, hoping to get some sleep. I was jolted awake by a loud banging noise. My heart raced as I sat up in bed listening intently. The banging continued, and it sounded like it was coming from the hallway. I grabbed my flashlight and cautiously opened the door. The hallway was dimly lit, and I could see shadows dancing on the walls. The banging grew louder, and I followed the sound to the end of the hall. That's when I saw him, the headless man. He was tall and dressed in tattered clothes, his head missing from his shoulders. He moved with a slow, shuffling gait, his arms outstretched as if searching for something. I stood frozen in place, my flashlight beam illuminating his ghostly form. The headless man stopped and turned toward me as if sensing my presence. Despite his lack of a head, I could feel his gaze on me. Fear surged through me, and I took a step back, my mind racing. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, my voice trembling. The headless man didn't respond, but he began to move closer, his movements deliberate and menacing. I could feel the temperature drop as he approached, and a sense of dread washed over me. I turned and ran back to my room, slamming the door behind me. My hands shook as I fumbled with the lock, my heart pounding in my chest. I backed away from the door, my eyes wide with fear. The banging started again, this time right outside my door. I could hear the headless man shuffling down the hallway, his presence palpable even through the thick wooden door. I knew I had to get out of there. I grabbed my belongings and climbed out the window, landing in the garden below. I ran to my car and sped away from the inn, not daring to look back. As I drove through the dark, empty streets, I couldn't shake the image of the headless man from my mind. The next day, I did some research on the Maplewood Inn and discovered its dark history. The headless man was believed to be the spirit of a former guest who had been murdered in the inn many years ago. His head had never been found, and his restless spirit continued to haunt the inn, searching for the piece of himself that was missing. My encounter with the headless man left me shaken, but it also gave me a story to tell. The Maplewood Inn may be a charming old inn, but it's also a place where the past refuses to rest. Determined to uncover more about the headless man, I returned to the inn a few weeks later, this time with a group of fellow paranormal investigators. We set up our equipment and began our investigation, hoping to communicate with the restless spirit and learn more about his tragic fate. As night fell, the atmosphere in the inn grew tense. The temperature dropped, and we could feel a palpable sense of unease. We gathered in the hallway where I had seen the headless man and began our session. "If there is a spirit here, please give us a sign," one of the investigators called out. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, The EMF meter began to spike, and we heard a faint whisper. "Help me," the voice said, barely audible. We continued to ask questions, and the responses we received were chilling. The Headless Man had been a guest at the inn in the early 1900s, a businessman named William, who had been murdered during a robbery. His head had been taken as a gruesome trophy, and his body had been left to rot in the attic. Determined to help William find peace, we conducted a cleansing ritual, hoping to release his spirit from the inn. As we chanted and burned sage, the atmosphere grew even colder, and we could feel William's presence growing stronger. And suddenly the temperature rose, and we saw a faint light in the hallway. William's apparition appeared, his form more solid than before. He looked at us with gratitude, and we could see his headless form slowly fade away. The inn felt different after the ritual, lighter and more peaceful. The sense of dread was gone, and we knew that William had finally found peace. Our investigation had not only uncovered a tragic story, but it also helped a restless spirit find closure. The experience left a lasting impact on me. I continued my work as a travel writer, but I approached haunted locations with a newfound respect for the spirits I encountered. The Headless Man of Maplewood Inn had shown me the importance of compassion and the power of understanding the past.